Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Monday Night Raw was uncut, uncooked, and uncensored. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
You know who is the ugliest, meanest, nastiest hog of them all? It's me, Ryan Arico. And when I gets to the WWF, sweet, I'm going to be in hog heaven.
You have a big Levi Garrett in your mouth right now?
Sweet. Joe Gimateo.
Short people got no reason to live.
Oh, it's going to be one of those nights, huh? I'm Jason Bartlett, no relation to Rob Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on November 28th, 1994. This Raw was recorded at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Let's get it done.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get into it. So we're going to have the intro, and now everybody keep in mind this is the first Raw post-Survivor Series. So Vince is going to kick off Raw frantically recapping the events of Survivor Series. And he's going to go into detail about the match that was of mid-card importance, the championship title submission match. At age 45, Bob Backlund once again is the WWF champion. Then he's going to go and recap the Shawn Michaels Diesel rift. Diesel had it. Nuh-uh. No more Mr. Nice Guy. And then, this past Saturday, at Madison Square Garden, with the Hitman Bret Hart temporarily out of action, Big Daddy Cool, the 9.5-foot-tall Monster Diesel, becomes the new WWF champion in a record-setting 8 seconds. Big Daddy Cool is the leader of the new World Wrestling Federation generation. And that little thing there, Diesel becoming the champion, that's something that we're going to get into a little bit later whenever we have a Diesel segment. But for right now, all you need to know is that Bob Backlund was the champion for all of 2.5 days and lost it in 8 seconds. After this little segment, we're going to cue the intro music and the intro montage. It's oddly comforting to have that opening music and blaring siren coming back at us again. It's been a few weeks since we've had it, and it was good to hear it. Vince calls the crowd their raucous, and he's not wrong. There's a lot of legit energy coming from the crowd, and Vince lets us know that there's going to be a special interview with the new WWF champion, the 15-foot-tall Monster Diesel. Adam Baum is going to take on IRS a little bit later.
No wonder they're so energetic.
Yeah, they got the Bomb Squad showing up in force tonight. Just when we thought that the place couldn't get any more hyped up and excited, high energy hits, and it's time to get into our first match. Owen Hart defeats John Paul by submission in 4 minutes even. Owen Hart is going into this match very stoked. He's very proud of himself, coming down to the ring with the towel and the glasses. John Paul's already there in the ring waiting for him. Owen is moving very well in his initial exchanges with John Paul. He's smooth as always. Vince informs us here that the Hitman is going to be on the phone with us shortly. I'm wondering if he had to shell out the $1.49 to get his opinion on the record. But wait, Bret is here on the line now as Owen starts getting to work on John Paul. There is a "We Want Bret" chant in the audience. This audience is, throughout this Raw, was very, very high energy and very, very involved. All of Owen's moves are looking great. John Paul is doing a decent job here working with him. I really wasn't disappointed by this match with the jobber work here. Bret's on the phone. He says he hasn't seen the replay of the submission match, but he's still in shock about what happened at Survivor Series. We can't really blame him. Bob Backlund. Good Lord. Lawler tells Bret that he ought to get on his horse and ride off into the sunset, and Bret replies that he'd like to drag him behind the horse. Thought that was a little clever for Bret. Bret's usually not that great with the witty retorts, but thought that was pretty good. At this point in the match, Owen puts John Paul on the second rope in the middle of the apron and is choking him against it. The ref starts to count as Owen ratchets down on the choke. And finally, Owen lets go. John Paul falls off the rope slightly. The ref chastises Owen about it, and Owen yells, "For what? He's not even on the ropes!" Some really excellent Owen nugget work here. John Paul manages to mount a decent comeback until Owen reverses an Irish whip. He locks in the sharpshooter on John Paul, and John Paul lasts about 2 seconds before the bell is rung. The ref is yelling at Owen to let John Paul go. Owen is shaking his head and holding his hand up, and he's yelling, "I can't hear you!" before eventually dropping John Paul. Owen gets the towel from the corner, throws it at John Paul, uses it to shoo him from the ring, and the match is over. Ryan, what did you think of the first match of the first Raw since the events of Survivor Series?
We're here at the Fallout Raw, and we didn't get our anchor match at the beginning. We started out with Owen versus Jobber.
Good call.
But a good jobber match. I agree with you. Everything happening in the ring here looked good. It starts off with Owen's beautiful entrance with that towel. When I saw him still having the towel that he ran off with at Survivor Series, I loved seeing that. That's just one of those, to use one of his later names, that's just one of those nuggets that Owen adds that just really elevate him. Just excellent work from him. Again, we get the King on commentary here, and he fits into it, like a glove. He's used to it. When he calls Helen Hart the old fossil face, I got a good chuckle out of that. John Paul looked good in the ring. He was a very good jobber, I thought. You could see a couple spot calling early on, but after that was about the only real complaint I'd have about him. You could see him making the calls a little bit too blatant, but after that, he looked pretty good in the ring. Then Brad calls in. Once he calls in, I guess that's time for Vince and the King to just forget about what's happening in the ring. And the King acts surprised that Canada has phone service. I got a kick out of that. But it's kind of disappointing that they're ignoring some really good jobber work in the ring here with one of the greats that they have right now. Arguably one of the greatest they have right now, Owen. So the fact that they're just, let's talk with Brett on the phone here and let's not worry about the mic is a little bit of a disservice to Owen. So that was a little bit disappointing. But good ending. He throws Brett's move, the sharpshooter, on John Paul to finish it off, and then beautifully throws the towel at him. All in all, it was an enjoyable match. I have no complaints about it.
Yeah, I agree with the entrance being great. With the fallout, you get the guy out there that has that gained the most heat from the pay-per-view, with Owen coming out with the towel, the Bret Hart towel, which was great. We haven't heard a phone interview in a while, so I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but they're obviously selling the shit out of this shoulder injury to get Bret onto the Lonesome Dove set.
No serious injury. It's just a stretch tendon. Yeah. He'll be back for New Year's.
Right. Another thing on the entrance, Owen just talking shit to the crowd was beautiful. And a couple things about Owen's wrestling. I noted, he's probably the most athletic of all the Harts. Maybe not necessarily the best wrestler. I'd have to give that to Bret, but he seems like the most athletic. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but Owen delivers a great drop kick. He might be one of the best ever at the drop kick. That was one thing I noticed here. One thing I tried to get out of this jobber match that was good. And that's about all I have noted here.
All right. Yeah, I agree with both of you guys here. It was a pretty darn good match to kick things off. Ryan, good call on pointing out that we're not getting our anchor match. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're absolutely right. We're kind of breaking from the formula here. That being said, Owen Hart was not disappointing. He very rarely is. Joe, I do absolutely agree with you about the drop kick. I had noticed that during this match and had noted it, but left it out during my breakdown just because I generally try to leave out the more common moves. But in Owen Hart's case, it's really not that common. But we're going to move on to our next segment here. It's going to be a quick one. We're going to be selling the replay of Survivor Series here. And we get a good voiceover. The 1994 Survivor Series was the most surprising ever. Experience the drama. And we get still shots of the submission match. The betrayal, with still shots of the Diesel babyface turn. The laughter, with still shots of midgets. And the ultimate judgment, with still shots from the Undertaker versus Yokozuna casket match. You won't see it on network TV. WWF Survivor Series, a special encore presentation. Tomorrow night at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, only on pay-per-view. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss what happened.
Do you know what these still shots reminded me of? Trying to, the next day or the night of a heavyweight boxing match when you're trying to figure out who won and you turn on ESPN, but they couldn't show actual footage. So they would show you these still shots of the match. That was what this reminded me of.
Yeah, good call on that one. The whole time I was watching this, I was viewing it as the tease that it was meant to be. But at the same time, I was thinking, like, this isn't, maybe it's because I, had just watched Survivor Series, but like, it wasn't roping me in at all. There was nothing about this that was enough of a cock tease to like grab me and make me want to hypothetically pick up the phone and call. You know what I mean? It was weird. I mean, it was paced all right, but this segment, however, is going to take us into our next match. Erwin R. Shyster defeats Adam Bomb by pinfall in 8 minutes. 8 minutes, everybody. Adam Bomb has some added production value to his entrance here. I hope I'm not the only one that noticed that. They're kind of maybe strapping the bottle rocket to him a little bit, give him a teeny little push. We're not talking Lex Luger level of, adding USA to the music. Speaking of Lilliputians, happy birthday to Randy Newman, the guy who wrote the song Short People.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
After a quick commercial break, IRS comes down to the ring with the $1 Million Man's music. I noted this before. I'm going to note it again. Kind of getting tired of the $1 Million Man. I know IRS doesn't really have much of his own thing to go off of, but he was always kind of tolerable, at least with the microphone and just berating people as he walked to the ring. That was always at least a little bit entertaining. Now it's just money, 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 and I'm kind of really getting over it. IRS is being accompanied by the $1 Million Man and a person in a black cloak and hood. We don't know who this is. They start calling him the Druid. IRS is going to get on the mic here to call out the Undertaker. Undertaker, you might be the master of the casket match, but you still won't rest in peace until you've paid IRS. There is no explanation of the person in the cloak. IRS immediately takes Adam Bomb to the ring corner, out of Adam Bomb's comfort zone, but don't worry, we're back to the center of the ring in no time. At one point here, IRS goes to ringside to recover after a hit. Adam Bomb comes out to get him and tosses him back to the center of the ring. Adam Bomb gets up on the apron and attempts a slingshot clothesline over the top rope. It doesn't really work out all that well, but he does get a pin attempt in the center of the ring. At this point in the match, I'm genuinely curious about this person they keep calling the Druid at ringside. This is a part of this storyline. Well, I don't even know if we want to call this a storyline at this moment, but I don't remember this Druid or what they have to do with anything.
So I didn't think this was coming this soon, but is this the beginning of The Undertaker coming out with the Druids lining the ring with the torches and shit?
I don't think so.
I thought that was a little bit later.
Yeah. That's not till like 96, 97, I thought.
That's what I was thinking. But I mean, I don't know, just when I saw that and they called him the Druid and he's feuding with the Undertaker.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Well, I mean, it all does make sense. Like what you're saying makes sense, but it just, I just don't remember this. The whole Druid thing with the Undertaker doesn't start until after he drops Paul Bearer, right? That's after Kane.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I'm intrigued by the Druid here. IRS gets a 2 count that Adam Bomb weakly kicks out of, even though Vince calls the kick out a kick out with authority. It was horrible. And I had to note, IRS is sweating like a pig throughout this entire match. I think he might have been taking salt pills or something, because his face is pouring like a faucet for this whole fucking match. It was really kind of gross. And there's a surprise commercial break. When we come back, nothing has changed at all. IRS is doing the typical heel work here, getting leverage on submission moves when the ref isn't looking. Just dirty work in general. Adam Bomb goes up to the top rope to attempt an aerial maneuver, but no dice. The Druid comes up and knocks him off. Apparently, getting shoved off of the top rope is more than Adam Bomb can handle, because that fall from the top rope is enough to give IRS the pin and an easy 3 count. The Druid and IRS go to town on Adam Bomb. We get glimpses of black and white airbrush tights under the cloak while they're doing the kicking. Did either of you guys notice that?
Yeah. I thought I was intrigued by the Druid until I saw the wrestling gear under the Druid garb.
I'm just throwing it out there now. I think it's one of the jobbers from later in the night, either Gary Scott or Buck Quartermain.
That would make sense.
I'm not positive. It was like a black and white airbrush pattern thing on the wrestling tights. Not positive. We, just for the record, we do not get a view of the face at all. You get like maybe 2 seconds of the dude's tights from like the knees down whenever he's laying kicks into Adam Bomb. So it's all speculation at this point. But Lex Luger comes down to save Adam Bomb, though, as we all know, there's nothing more made in the USA than 3 Mile Island.
Right down the road here.
There's a pretty loud USA chant, even though everyone here are Americans. Like you pointed out with, what was that, King Kong Bundy at Survivor Series?
Yeah.
The USA chant. You what did you say, Joe? He's from New Jersey?
Yeah. Yeah, they only boo the New Jersey guys, Bam Bam and King Kong Bundy. Or the USA chant, I mean.
Regardless of what New York wants to say, New Jersey is in America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to end this match with that loud USA chant. Joe, are you satisfied with your weekly dose of IRS?
Well, I will quote Vince McMahon during this match. Not a great deal of scientific wrestling going on here. This match is, goddamn, it's boring. It's not very good.
8 minutes.
Yeah, the shitty Bomb video is back for Adam Bomb before he makes his entrance, which they weren't doing since he turned face. They didn't show that video, I don't think. I think he would just come out.
But the nuke bomb pyro's still
yes,
there.
The mushroom cloud, this one was particularly awesome. Like, this one was huge compared to the other ones.
Nice coloring right as the cloud exploded. Yeah.
But Adam Bomb cannot even make a headlock look good. I mean, he's awful. I'm glad at least we see IRS wrestling and not cutting a fucking graveyard promo again. Even though he's sweating as if he just dug a grave in 100-degree heat. Like you said, Bartlett, he's just sweating profusely. My God. I was disappointed that the IRS won, but we didn't get to see the penalty applied. I would have liked to have seen that on Adam Bomb and have him squeal like a pig. Other than that, I don't really have much to say. But Bartlett, if you're getting tired of the $1 Million Man and his corporation, you've got a long year ahead of you.
Yeah, I know.
We are going to be entering 95.
Yep.
Widely regarded as the worst year in wrestling. I guess this is our big star match. Right?
Yeah. How about that shit, huh?
So you're saying this is your highlight of the show, Ryan?
Adam Bomb versus IRS. All right. Like you said, Joe, it's a pretty boring match. The King and Vince, they were ignoring the entertaining Owen and Jobber match earlier, but yet this one they stay riveted to all 9 minutes of it. I'm not going to give too many highlights about the match because there isn't any. But I did like right towards the beginning, they were giving the talk about IRS's interference in the Undertaker Yokozuna match from Survivor Series. And then Vince tells us Yokozuna is taking a dirt nap. So I think that is official. He is dead as far as the WWF is concerned and is to not be talked about probably from this point going on.
Well, I mean, that's what Petting Zoo was insinuating all those times during the lead up to Survivor Series.
He was, but I'm saying we officially got it from Vince. He is taking a dirt nap. He is dead.
Vince is known to say you sleep when you're dead. So if he's napping, he's dead.
He's gone. I enjoyed towards the beginning of the match, they lock up and the fans start chanting Irwin like Daryl from The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Irwin.
Yeah.
That was good. At another point, Vince, I don't know what even compelled him to say this, but he talked about Adam Bomb, shooting up their ladder. And then Jerry the King correctly says to him something about how fast he's sliding down the ladder, which is the correct assessment here, as we all know.
Yeah.
The other thing they point out is something about some apparent burglar in California got caught in a chimney.
The pawn shop.
Yes, for 2 days while trying to break into a pawn shop. And Vince segues this into a quick thing about Santa going down the chimney for Christmas because we're just about to hit December in the Raw calendar here. Other than that, the match itself was, as you said, pretty standard IRS, abdominal stretch, chin lock. Let's draw it out. And then the pin. Nothing too much. Lex Luger at the very end, he's coming to Adam's aid. Other than that, who cares?
Commercial break on a 2 count just shows how much they did not give a shit about the match.
Yeah, so all I have to say, I think, is just to repeat 8 minutes. 8 minutes of this. You guys have pretty much said it all. Boring as hell. I will say, though, Joe, you kind of made me think, because I didn't think of this at first. Whenever I was watching the match, I was wondering how it was going to end. I knew that IRS was going to win. I didn't know the method of victory, though. I was wondering if he was going to apply the penalty to him, but then, he didn't. And you noted that. I wonder why that is. Do you think maybe it's because Mike Rotunda is so much shorter than Adam Bomb? There's maybe like a not leverage, but because of the height difference, he's not able to properly apply the penalty to Adam Bomb.
My guess is that they didn't want to make and I'm using air quotes here, non-jobber submit to a submission move.
Because only the champion can lose to a submission move.
That's right.
I was kind of thinking that too, but instead you make him lose after just a quick slam off the top. There was nothing special about that move. And he's out.
The Druid pushed him off the top rope. That's it.
He slowly stumbled off the top rope, and that's enough for a 3 count.
Yeah.
He managed to fall about 2 feet. 8 minutes, everybody.
Monsters don't submit to the penalty.
But they do get pinned after a 3-inch fall.
After a druid knocks you off the rope, yeah.
That's contrary to everything that I've been told in the past couple weeks. Not even death can protect you from the penalty. So, at least we had this cavalcade of mediocrity capped off by the king of mediocrity, Lex Luger.
Yes.
There's that to be happy about. So, back at ringside, Vince and the King are going to be talking about the recent clash between the $1 Million Corporation and Lex Luger. But the real story here is the hideous fucking chud behind and between them. She kept sticking her head down.
She wanted to take Vince and just fuck his brains out, I think.
My Lord.
Chomping on that gum.
She had a smile like a gremlin. Like she was standing there kind of looking normal, like an ordinary human being, but then she would like smile for the camera and it was like, good God.
Yeah.
This isn't the last time we're going to see her.
Well, she's right behind them.
Yeah.
She managed to make herself really the focal point of this camera angle for most of it.
Wow. How could you not be?
She's got me feeling like I'm in hog heaven.
Oh, boy. While we were at ringside, they're going to rehash the casket match now, and they're going to give us still shots from the casket match with courtesy of WWF Survivor Series Encore beneath it. Courtesy of the Encore. As if Vince doesn't own all of this and could just rubber stamp it. No, we have to get courtesy of the Encore beneath it. But we do get a still shot of that one camera angle from the foot of the casket with the urn sitting on the lid and Paul Bearer at the head pushing the casket down the entryway with the Undertaker walking behind him. That is just a phenomenal photo on its own. They could have eliminated all of this other shit and just shown that photo for 5 of the 8 minutes that was the Atom Bomb match, and I would have been very happy.
Well, I mean, we've established before Paul Bearer is the most beautiful man in all of wrestling.
Yes. Yep.
But that scene just, and I noted it for the Survivor Series episode, but that was just a genius shot. Foot of the casket, urn, then Paul Bearer, then the Undertaker in the background, all wreathed in mist and darkness. It was just an amazing, amazing view. Good shot.
Very artistic.
Yeah. That would make a great panoramic poster, I think. But next, we're going to hear the engine revving up for our next match. Bob Sparkplug Holly defeats Tony DeVito by pinfall in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Someone in the audience has a homemade Bob Holly is hot sign. She looks like she's about twice his age, too. Tony DeVito is in the ring waiting, of course. Lawler doesn't care for Sparky Plug for some reason. As the match starts, he's going to do a lot of shit talking on old Bob Holly throughout this. Kind of made me wonder if they're building towards the next feud for Lawler, I guess. I don't know. The action in the ring starts. There's a really sloppy body slam. It actually made me physically wince seeing it happen. Tony DeVito is, shall we say, rotund. Quite a bit larger, at least in apparent body mass compared to Bob Holly, and it doesn't make for a good body slam. Vince tells us that Bob Holly is going to be leading the WWF racing team at the Snowball Derby in Pensacola, apparently. I didn't think that Bob Holly did any racing for the WWF at all, and the only thing that leads me to reconcile this with what Vince is saying is that little caveat there, leading the racing team, not driving in the racing team. I'm assuming putting in like FaceTime.
Cheerleader.
Yeah, more or less.
Maybe he drove the pace car.
Yeah. I meant to look up what the Snowball Derby was, and I didn't even get a chance. Doesn't sound like anything major, so, you know, it's nothing to be that proud of, I don't think. Funny cars. Typical with what we know about him, Bob Holly is starting to look really pissed off in the ring. He's starting to make various facial expressions that seem to indicate that he's getting frustrated. Tony DeVito, on the other hand, he has a good run of offense. Well, you know, it's a 2 minute and 50-second match, so he maybe does about 20 seconds of good offense before Sparky Plug rallies. And that troll in the audience behind Vince and Lawler really fucking loves Bob Holly. She is screeching for him the entire time. Bob Holly lands a clothesline from the top rope to get the pinfall. What's that? Don't forget, folks, we're going to have a special interview with our new WWF champion, the 17-foot-tall Monster Diesel. And Lex Luger will be in action. But first, Ryan, give us your thoughts on Tony DeVito's performance here, please.
Well, I mean, it's a short match. You know, Tony DeVito himself didn't do a bad job, especially during his offensive flurry that he had there for a few seconds. You know, Bob Harley obviously had a little bit of issue throwing his size around, but I mean, you know, you can't blame that on Tony DeVito. Not too much happening. It was kind of that standard, really quick jobber match that we get at least one or two of a week. They come out. It's less than 3 minutes long with just very, very little happening and very little of the announcers paying attention to it. It starts off, you have one little segment that I really liked was King referring to McMahon as McMoron.
Yeah.
And then says, let me ask you a question. I heard Bob Holly entered into some type of powder puff derby this weekend. And that's when Vince corrects him. No, it's the snowball derby.
He's like, let me ask you a question, McMoron. I mean, McMahon.
Yeah.
And he got the, I beg your pardon?
Yeah. Outside of his quick little offensive flurry there, we don't get too much more out of DeVito. Just a reminder, he is a former jobber of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to end on that. It was a pretty standard jobber match.
Yeah, nothing impressive here for me other than Bob Holly's sweet NASCAR mullet he's got going on.
Yeah.
Bob Holly is a good worker. He's not at the level where he can be a big star right now, I think. So, yeah, I don't really have much. I do have noted that I thought Jerry Lawler was pretty good on this episode overall. Not to the point where I'd call it a highlight, but I thought it was nice to hear some decent commentary since Macho Man left.
Yeah, I'm going to absolutely agree with that. It wasn't that frantic fucking coked up cornet again.
Right.
That would have been horrible. As far as this match goes, is it just me or did Tony DeVito gain some weight?
I was almost wondering if maybe he lost a few.
Yeah, Vince didn't even call him fat during this match.
I'm not trying to be facetious in saying that, like, and I might have to go back in the archives and rewatch his Jobber of the Week match.
Well, have fun with that.
Yeah. And again, I'm being serious. He looks a lot bigger than I remember him being. Like,
I didn't notice.
Quite a gut.
I think the last time was against 123 Kid, right? And he was having some trouble throwing him around as well.
Yeah, but I mean, the 123 Kid is...
Well, he's a little smaller than Bob Holly at this time. This was Bob Holly before the roids.
His Jobber of the Week match, he was in a tag team with Barry Horowitz.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't... Maybe they were against the Head Shrinkers?
Are you patting yourself on the back right now? Like Barry Horowitz?
I wasn't positive. I didn't go back and look, but again, like I joke around about it, but it literally looked like he maybe had some kind of growth inside of him. I don't know.
Just the nonstop girth. You just can't contain it.
The girth is coming.
Day and night.
All right. Well, after this match, we are going to have some time at ringside and a debut promo. I am super excited about this. Have you ever been down on the farm? We're going to take you to Henry Godwin, ladies and gentlemen, in Arkansas, down on his hog farm. Howdy, my name is Henry Godwin, and I'm from Bitters, Arkansas. I'm not even going to try to keep on doing the fucking accent. There's my hog pen, he says. Some people think that hogs are mean and dirty and nasty, and they are, but the meanest of them all is me, Henry Godwin. And when I get to the WWF, I'm going to be in hog heaven. And he's got a couple other things that he says there, but this is basically the end of the promo. It's short and sweet, and Lex Luger is going to be up next. But first, Joe, what do you think about the promo debut of the newest WWF superstar, Henry Godwin? They left out the O, I was sad to see. But Henry Godwin.
Pretty exciting. Get a fresh face in here. They didn't really make it very mysterious on who this guy is. I mean, they made it quite obvious what to expect from him. So,
hello, I am Pig Farmer.
Yeah.
I was getting a strong deja vu of Duke the Dumpster Drozy.
Oh, wow.
Promo.
Yeah, good call.
I mean, just, everything about it. Just he's supposed to be this filthy, just kind of big bruiser type guy. Very, very similar. Very similar.
I absolutely see what you're saying there, Ryan. The difference that I would note is that this is, for whatever reason, automatically better. I can't really pinpoint what exactly about it, but this just feels 10 times better than Duke the Dumpster ever did.
He's better on the mic
yeah.
than Duke. Duke was very, very bad.
With the exception of the promo of Duke living in a dumpster.
I think with Henry Godwinn, it seems like Henry Godwinn is really, that's like really his character, where Duke is like, I'm just this fucking trash guy. I don't really buy into it.
Yeah. On a bit of a teensy bit of a side note, though, I am very excited for Henry Godwinn. I remember back in the day, I was a big Henry Godwinn fan.
There's a first I've never heard.
Really? Well, we were kids. I'm not saying, and I can't remember.
I know. I'm just saying I don't remember anyone ever saying to me I was a big Godwinn fan. I don't remember ever hearing that.
Well, it was good, and then it got even better whenever they added Phineas and Hillbilly Jim as their manager. Because really the biggest thing for me was Hillbilly Jim. I used to love Hillbilly Jim as a kid.
Hillbilly Jim was pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're going for here with Henry.
Yeah, he's a poor man's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it starts off with this. I mean, this is already exponentially better than the promos that we were getting out of Duke the Dumpster. Since we're still in the era of occupation gimmicks, hi, I'm the tax man. Hi, I'm the pig farmer.
Yeah, better than the King Kong Bundy return as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those promos were creative, but it was ultimately a dud because, it's King Kong Bundy. But this is just going to keep building because Henry O. Godwinn is going to get in there and do some wrestling, some pig wrestling. And then they're going to add Phineas and then Hillbilly Jim, and it's going to get better. I'm just spitballing off the top of my head, but didn't the Godwinns do a turn as the tag champs?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't remember. Hot potato with those tag belts.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, I'll stop dwelling on it. Suffice to say, I'm excited for Henry Godwinn. But now it's time for our next match. Lex Luger defeats Bert Centeno by submission in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Bert Centeno, everybody. Lex Luger is being led to the ring by some poor kid decked out in the American flag, everything. The crowd here in Poughkeepsie really seems to love Lex. It's a startling departure from the past few weeks where it seems like the crowds haven't given two shits about Lex Luger at all. But, and it pains me to say this, I don't think they were pumping in the crowd noise for this match. You could see it in the crowd. There was some large woman in the background waving a gigantic American flag through much of the match. And Bert Centeno is introduced, and I think his head is gradually merging into his torso. The last time we saw him, he still had most of his neck, but that seems to be gone now.
He's an odd-looking fellow.
He is. I think that...
Maybe he took a pile driver from Marty Jannetty.
Oh, that'll do it. Ugh. I'm not sure. I want to say that this word maybe has different meanings nowadays, but the word swarthy comes to mind with him. Like you look at him like that's like he's swarthy. That's a swarthy gentleman. He looks like he could be a pirate. Short and kind of bow-legged and malformed. Like,
so you're saying they should have done the pirate gimmick?
Yeah, put a fucking parrot on his shoulder.
Yeah.
But Bert Centeno is a good 9 or 10 inches shorter than Lex Luger, and the contrast does not look that good at all. It's just really not a good matchup. They don't look right together in the ring. Bert Centeno doesn't look right, period, but Lex Luger seems to be having a hard time selling for Bert Centeno. Didn't really seem like he was putting much effort into it. And at ringside in commentary, Vince is already starting to put over the Royal Rumble. And this is what, November 28th, 1994. Royal Rumble isn't going to be for another 2 months.
That really highlights the quality of this match.
Yeah.
He did say that they go on sale this weekend. So I think that's why he was plugging the Royal Rumble. The tickets were going on sale that weekend.
Well, it made me think of what Pritchard had said whenever we were listening to his episode on Survivor Series 1994. And this is something that I constantly forget because it is relevant. A lot of times the shit that Pritchard says just kind of sounds like apologist bullshit. In this case, I absolutely believe him. Their business model at this time was basically using Raw to sell for pay-per-views and house shows. They weren't really trying to make Raw a high-quality television program, and that's ultimately why Nitro ended up kicking their asses. One of the reasons.
Changing the title at a house show.
Yeah.
I mean, that supports that.
Like I said, it's something that I constantly forget, but it's fitting here, especially. Really, that's why they are here, is to, now that Survivor Series has happened, it's time to start getting everybody ready for the Royal Rumble and all of those pay-per-view sales. Not to mention the buying tickets to house shows in the lead up to it. So a little bit of context that I always have to remind myself of. Luger has a hard time getting Centeno's roly-poly ass up into the torture rack. Rebel rack, pardon me. But he eventually does, and the match is over quickly. Thank Friar Ferguson. Some diehard fan in the audience brought a giant ass flag to wave in the crowd as Luger gets a ton of pyro for his win. Lex Luger, Ryan, get us started on it, please.
They're really trying to get the crowd into it for Lex here as he enters with little Stevie Balls waving the American flag and his giant tie-dyed shirt that goes down to his ankles.
Stevie?
Yeah, his name was Steve Balls, is what they announced. Yeah.
Okay. See, I couldn't understand it whenever it was saying it.
I rewound. I wanted to hear the name. Bartlett, I did want to ask real quickly, did you want this tie-dyed shirt as well?
No, thank you. That's all right.
I was just wondering.
Appreciate the thought, but no.
And then right towards the beginning, Vince, I guess he just couldn't shake it from Survivor Series with Gorilla. He lets a kisser fly when talking about Lex Luger's face and a smile.
It's contagious.
Yeah, you kind of covered this already, though. Bert and Lex, they look terrible in the ring together. Nothing about this match was very entertaining. It was just slow and stupid. The highlight is probably King when he makes fun of the crowd, saying Thanksgiving was just over and this one guy has so much food left in his teeth that Sally Struthers wants to send him to Africa.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's quite a statement there out of King. But this is kind of a pattern we saw a couple times tonight. Vince and the King not caring about what's going in the ring because it's worthless, and they're just talking about Sally Struthers and Royal Rumble tickets. And then, oh, what's this? Oh, Bert's in the Rebel rack and it's over. All right, good night.
Yeah. Every time I see a Lex Luger match, I just think of what could have been at this during this year. I mean, we've seen a lot of Luger over the past year, and they're still doing this All-American thing. It's just really shocking to me that they just never decided to go a different direction with it. It's not really working still. I just don't understand why they kept going with it. I don't have anything really noted on this match because of that. I'm just so distracted by the fact that they just keep doing this. And even adding to it, like Jason, like you mentioned with the USA chant built into the song now, it just sounds so terrible. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I mentioned this last week. Luger, when he's selling, anytime he gets hit by his opponent, he's like screaming bloody murder. He's he's yelling. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but that's that's something I picked up on during this match and last week at the Survivor Series. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have here. I'm just dumbfounded that they're going to keep doing this All-American thing with him. He does connect a little bit. Like when he's calling for that rack, the fans are into it. They're liking that. So, I mean, he does have some pieces that are connecting with the crowd.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with just about everything you guys have said. And Joe, you brought up a really great point about them meaning Vince and, I don't know, just the creative in general in the WWF at the time. They were absolutely willing to do a complete 180 on Luger and his character with the narcissist to the All-American, but they're not willing to do that here. Like, what the hell? They didn't need to do it before. It was a mistake before. But now when they need to do it, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he was maybe just difficult to work with and didn't want to do anything else but this. I can't imagine that creative would want him to keep doing this.
Yeah. Every time we see a Lex Luger match, I think back to Royal Rumble 1994, whenever him and Bret Hart went over the top rope at the same time.
Yeah.
And Jack Tunney came out. They literally did a crowd poll in the middle of a fucking pay-per-view, holding Lex's arm up, then Bret's, because they just couldn't tell how much people actually liked Lex Luger or if they were just fucking humoring him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not quite as obvious in this episode just because the crowd seems to actually genuinely like him. But 95% of the episodes we've watched, nobody has been excited for Lex Luger, us included. Enough said about that, because next up, we got some splaining to do, Lucy. Vince is going to interview the 20-foot, 4-ton monster, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, in the ring. And I had to note, Diesel's pyro seems a teensy bit weak to me here, especially compared to the Survivor Series entrance.
And compared to Atom Bombs.
Yeah.
Well, nothing can compare to the mass destruction of millions of lives. Vince brings up the issues that occurred at Survivor Series, and Diesel does a good job of breaking down the situation with Shawn Michaels. He tells the story fairly well. During this interchange, the upward camera angle does a really good job of accentuating the height of this 22-foot tall monster. Apparently, that asshole Jack Tunney, the most worthless name in television, is who is responsible for the current situation. Bret Hart should have faced Bob Backlund at that house show to challenge for the title, but Jack Tunney made the decision to put Diesel in as number one contender. And Diesel goes on to tell the story about how he was walking the streets of New York City before that match. He was nervous, so he went out for a walk in New York City, and many people there started just stopping him and wishing him good luck in his title run. It's amazing that many people had been informed of the last-minute decision made by the asshole Jack Tunney. As a matter of fact, it ends up being a couple hundred people by the end of that walk, telling Big Daddy to bring home the gold. And like Jackie Gleason says, how sweet it is that Big Daddy got the gold. Diesel respects Bob Backlund's bow ties and says that if Bob Backlund gets the cross-faced chicken, or no, excuse me, I almost misread my notes because he didn't say it right.
Cross-wing chicken.
Yeah, if Bob Backlund gets the cross-wing chicken on Diesel, it will be trouble, but he's got to get it on Diesel first. And Diesel goes on to say that he doesn't like the way that Bret Hart lost his belt, but Diesel is going to emulate the fighting champion Bret Hart, and anytime Bret wants a shot at the belt, he's got it. That's a promise from the Big D. Joe, please get us started talking about Diesel's first promo on Raw as champion and just this whole situation in general that we're walking into on Raw here.
Give him the Big D. I think just reading some of the stuff from the Observer and just observing myself watching this, like, I think this is too soon. I think Vince got too excited here. Ever since Hulk Hogan left, Vince is like desperately searching for the next Hulk Hogan. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about your thoughts on Bob Backlund just getting squashed. I understand the transition. He had to take the belt off Bret. He wanted it to go to Diesel. They're building to this Diesel versus Shawn Michaels feud. But to squash Backlund, I thought it was very bizarre given the fact that we've watched this Backlund versus Bret Hart feud for quite a few months now. So interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. Just a little background I read on Kevin Nash in The Observer was that he was an all-state basketball player in high school. He played center. He went to play for the University of Tennessee, tried out for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but never didn't make the team. He played in some European leagues until he became a bouncer in some clubs in Atlanta. That's where he got noticed by WCW. So I thought that was interesting. I knew he played basketball. I didn't know he was like that good. You know, he's a pretty good athlete, and he's only, 35-ish at this time. So I guess it's a pretty good time to give him a little bit of a run here. But he definitely doesn't look completely comfortable cutting a babyface promo right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see we'll see where that takes us.
I want to start things off with, I don't know if you two guys noticed, but right after Vince introduces Diesel as the new champ, they start to pan up the walkway. They briefly stop on this guy with this beautiful red mullet and a red beard. And he's wearing a black tucked in Monday Night Raw shirt.
Yes.
Sleeves ripped off. And last, he has a pair of fingerless black gloves on, and he's holding a sign that says WWF runs on Diesel.
Yeah.
He was one of the most glorious looking motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life. The promo he cuts here is not the best. I mean, he stumbles pretty early here in a couple spots. He also has a very awkward ending. He kind of stumbles through the closer of his promo, but we heard from Diesel a couple times, and this has definitely been one of his better promos. Like, he was really terrible when we first heard him. He's a little bit more charismatic here, but like you said, you could tell he's not completely comfortable yet, but he is improving. So that is a plus. As far as the whole situation about what happens with Bob Backlund dropping the title so quick, it does seem a bit bizarre. As you mentioned, Joe, we're spending months, literally months, building up this match between Brett and Backlund. He's the definition of a transition title holder. We don't even get to see on live television him losing his match.
Get the belt off the baby face, put it on a heel, then put it on a baby face. Yeah.
I mean, I understand, yes, we don't want, especially at this time, we didn't have babyface versus babyface matches, especially this big of a match for a title.
Yeah, I think Hogan Warrior might have been like the only one that was,
they're very rare.
Yeah.
But whatever. They decided to do it this way. It does make a little bit more sense in context of Raw not really being a very prominent show for them right now, so they don't care about it. It's a little bit odd that Backlund so quickly loses the belt after such a big build-up, and we do know where things are going to go as far as critics are concerned on this year of Diesel, but we'll be getting into that more and more as 95 will start and continue, so I look forward to that.
Yeah, so as far as the promo here goes, I pretty much said everything I intended to say in my breakdown of it. And you guys have also put a pretty good bow tie on that as well. He's developing. He's essentially, in my eyes, in development right now, even though they decided to slap the fucking belt on him. He's been getting better. It was good to see him for the first time in a non-jobber match at Survivor Series. It was good to see him actually do some honest working instead of just enhancement talent matches. And here we've got Diesel cutting a promo in the middle of the ring with Vince McMahon himself on national television. As far as I know, that's a first. I know he's been getting a little bit of practice in on, Heartbreak Hotel on Superstars and stuff like that, but it just feels like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it is getting better. So there's that. As far as the entire situation goes with the belt, we do get a quick shot of the 8-second match. It's basically Diesel and Bob Backlund squaring up in the ring, facing each other. Diesel plants a kick to the gut, straight into the jackknife powerbomb, the pin, and that's it. He's champion. Say what you will about all of it, because, I mean, there's nothing to really that can be done about it now, obviously. We're looking back on it, but I think that this entire thing was just really, really hasty and cheap. And I don't understand why things had to go down the way they did. So they're obviously, let's put it at maybe 2 months ahead. Wherever they're at in their storylines, they know where they're going to be in 2 months. So whatever they've got going on in this episode of Raw, it's part of the build up to some kind of payoff about 2 months from now, give or take, obviously, with depending on what the story is. But there was no build up for this. We have Backlund winning. And yeah, I mean, we know that they want to get there eventually, but it's very, very, very un-Vince and un-WWF at this time, at least, to go for such a quick changeover with the championship belt. What did I say earlier? It was like 2.5 days for an 8-second match. And then to go and pin it all on fucking Jack Tunney. And I know he's just a scapegoat. That's why I call him the most useless name in television, because he's just a convenient figure that whenever something stupid like this happens, Jack Tunney made it happen. You know, of all of the people they could have picked. As far as the story goes, I'm with it up until he chooses Diesel to be the number one contender, because, yeah, I get it. Brett was hurt. He can't come back and re-challenge. That's fine. That's totally understandable. That's totally part of what we've been doing here. But to make the decision to go with Diesel over how many other people were strapping the fucking rocket to Adam Bomb, why not him? We're trying to get Lex Luger over for a fucking 1.5 years now. Why not him? Anybody but Diesel. I mean, and I'm not exactly bitching that it's Diesel specifically, but it's so half-assed and cheap the way they did it. If just spitballing off the top of my head, if I had my way with it, we've got another pay-per-view coming up in 2 months, and the winner of the Royal Rumble is going to face the champion at WrestleMania. Why not have more development out of Diesel over the next 2 months, have him win the Royal Rumble, and then challenge Backlund at WrestleMania? We wind up in that 2-month cycle. We wind up with Diesel as the champion 2 months from now, after he's had time to, work out the kinks. And then we've still got however long until everything gets fixed and Brett takes it back. The whole thing just really, really disturbing to me. No, disturbing's too strong of a word. The whole thing is just very un-Vince. It's un-WWF. It's not what we've been taught to expect from this. And it makes it feel slapdash. And for lack of a better phrase, it makes it feel like it's a Band-Aid on a sinking ship. And I'm not sure how accurate that is. That's just a phrase that comes to mind, an image that comes to mind. But it's like they're scrambling to do anything. And they have the convenient Backlund match and the switch over. And I don't know. I'm going to stop rambling about it because I'm going to start repeating myself, but it just feels very wrong from everything that we've come to expect from the WWF up until this point.
I could understand if he was like Hulk Hogan or Steve Austin level over, but he wasn't that over.
Yeah.
And taking it off Brett just because he's leaving for 1.5 months, like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing seems strange. I think, again, they just wanted to build up that Diesel versus Shawn Michaels thing for WrestleMania. And that's kind of where I guess that's Vince just pulled the trigger on this now.
Well, and I'm sorry, I did forget about the whole, that's kind of shitty because that's, part of everything here with Shawn Michaels. But, even if we're sticking with that, why not just have a title match at the Royal Rumble? Diesel doesn't have to be in the Royal Rumble. He can just challenge Backlund for it then. And we're still on that 2-month timetable.
I don't think they can have a match together. I don't think he wanted that on pay-per-view. I don't think those two could have a match together.
I absolutely agree with you on that. That would have been a real shitter of a match. But then again, look at what we're coming out of. Well, I don't know. A lot of people did like this, the submission match.
Bret Hart can make anything work. I'm not sure that either one of those two could, especially Backlund at that point in his career, maybe 15 years ago.
I don't know. Next up, there's going to be a quick commercial for Raw next week. And there's some clever wordplay as Vince describes the competitors. Next week on Monday Night Raw, we're going to have Double J, Jeff Jarrett, taking on the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. This is going to take us into our final match of the night. The Heavenly Bodies, the Doctor of Desire, Tom Pritchard, with the Gigolo, Jimmy Del Rey, accompanied by James E. Cornette, defeats Gary Scott and Buck Quartermain by pinfall in 3 minutes and 41 seconds. And Buck Quartermain is our Jobber of the Week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. Buck was born Jason Sagin on July 24th, 1967 in Tampa, Florida. In his youth, Jason was quite the athlete, becoming a 3-sport letterman in college, playing football, basketball, and baseball. However, football was by far his standout sport. He played defensive back for Jacksonville State University, and after graduation was drafted in the 3rd round to Toronto Argonauts, a professional Canadian football team. Following his retirement from the Canadian Football League, Sagin began training under Jimmy Del Rey. They're one of your favorite team members there, Bartlett. And making his professional debut in 1991 as Buck Quartermain. Buck was a mainstay on the Florida independent circuit, wrestling mainly for the IPW and NWA during much of his early career. He would hold both the heavyweight and tag team belts during his time with NWA. In late 94 and early 95, he began working for the WWF. However, he found very little success. Used mainly as a jobber, losing to the likes of Double J and Triple H. He did, however, score one victory before he left in 95. He defeated the Brooklyn Brawler in January of 95. Sadly, it was a dark match, so no one really got to see it. After 95, he would show up a couple more times for the WWF. In 2000, appearing in an episode of Sunday Night Heat, and another time in 2005 where he lost in a squash match to The Big Show on a Monday Night Raw. Later in 2005, Jason would start wrestling for TNA and join a tag team with Lex Luger. They would work mostly as a jobber team, losing almost all of their matches. And on March 4th, 2006, Quartermain made his final appearance in an 8-man tag match, teaming with Cassidy Riley, Shark Boy, and Norman Smiley, losing to Abyss, Jeff Jarrett, and America's Most Wanted.
God, what a shit career.
Norman Smiley. Now there's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. Norman Smiley. He was in WCW, wasn't he, Joe?
Yeah, he's currently a trainer for WWE.
Huh. Well, thank you, Ryan, for that. That was illuminating as always, and I can't help but note that Buck Quartermain definitely sounds like somebody that was trained by a gigolo.
Yeah, that sounds like a gigolo name there for sure.
And speaking of that gentleman of the night, we're going to get into the match here, and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey cannot stop gyrating in the ring. I mean, he's sending off waves and waves of sexuality out into the crowd. As a matter of fact, there's a middle-aged white woman holding up a sign in the crowd that says, "Tom and Jimmy are too sexy for the ring."
Oof.
She's going nuts for it. Gary Scott and Buck Quartermain are already in the ring, and the match gets going. As soon as it gets started, however, Bob Backlund comes down to ringside to join Jerry the King Lawler and Vince McMahon, and that's the last that we're going to hear about this match from commentary. In the ring, the work is fairly solid. However, Backlund's commentary at ringside is not. The Heavenly Bodies manage to get a good double team move in, and it is smooth. Meanwhile, Bob Backlund calls Diesel a Neanderthal, then lists the ills of society. There are children throwing people out of windows. Mothers killing their children. What kind of society is that? To me, that sounds like a just society. If the children are throwing people out of windows, then the mothers should probably be killing them. Commentary, again, is just completely ignoring the action in the ring, and it's a shame because from what I can see, the work is looking pretty solid here. Backlund talks some more about reading some Sigmund Freud at the library the other day. Meanwhile, in the ring, the Heavenly Bodies have apparently found the solution for keeping the gigolo Jimmy Del Rey from breaking his pelvis and taking him out of broad plowing action. Tom Pritchard grapples and then holds the jobber that was in the ring at the time. I honestly could not tell if that was Gary Scott or Buck Quartermain, but he grapples and then holds the jobber in the correct position so that gigolo Jimmy Del Rey can safely and accurately hit a splash from the top rope without jeopardizing the tools of his trade. This splash gets gigolo Jimmy Del Rey a pin with a 3 count, and he starts gyrating again. Backlund says he's going to be studying Diesel. Diesel's mother's name, Diesel's birthday, where he's from. He's going to procure the chicken wing onto Diesel and destroy him. Diesel is going to be exterminated from the WWF, just like the Tyrannosaurus Rex was destroyed from this earth millions of years ago. But Backlund is interrupted by promotional consideration, paid followed by the following. But before we get to that, Ryan, what did you think of the match that wasn't talked about at all while it was happening in the ring?
It was very disappointing it wasn't talked about at all because, I picked Buck Quartermain here as the jobber of the week because the in-ring work here was very solid. When I was able to divert my attention away from the announcers ignoring the match and actually pay attention to the match, it was entertaining. And all members in the ring seemed to be on the same page. We'd like to make fun of, at least me and Joe, of the Heavenly Bodies, but but they do typically put in a good show. So I'll give them that. And here they got 2 good workers. They're now working with 2 Jobber of the Weeks. Gary Scott is a former Jobber of the Week and our current Buck Quartermain. Good work all around, except for the announcers ignoring it for Bob Backlund's rambling about society. It's really sad how much they ignored it, but I enjoyed watching it, even though it was fairly short and there's not a ton to talk about. I thought everyone involved did a good job.
I still hate the outdated gimmick of the Heavenly Bodies.
Yeah.
I hate Pritchard flipping his hair all the time.
Yeah, but you're supposed to.
The pin that Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey does is just so fucking creepy. He's like,
oh yeah,
spreads his legs and it's like he's rubbing his taint on the guy's stomach.
Yes. And it's on his chin.
Repulsive.
He's as creepy as they come.
Yeah, he is.
That's great.
Did Bob Backlund say he was going to procure the chicken wing on McMahon?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah, that was funny. 1994, you don't see too many people threatening McMahon, so I liked that. But that's about it. That's all I noted here.
Yeah, I'm just going to remind everybody that the Heavenly Bodies are currently the best tag team in the WWF at this time. There's a reason why they were the Smoky Mountain champions before coming in and as part of this, I don't know what you would want to call it, wrestler exchange that Cornette had going on with them at the time. But yeah, Ryan, you said it best. All of the actors in the ring here were solid in their work. It was a very good match. And Joe, yes, that pin where he just ever so subtly just kind of ground his taint on the chin and the throat, and just
wants to make sure that the opponent feels his balls rubbing on his stomach.
He was marking his territory with his musk.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this is mine now.
This is what Bob Backlund was talking about in the fall of society.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this promotional consideration that had interrupted Bob Backlund, this is going to be another 5-second commercial for Acclaim's Raw is War video game. The 5 seconds that we get of video game footage looked great. Colors were good. Sprites were good. It was a good game. And then we're going to be back to ringside. We're going to rub Bob Backlund's nose in the 8-second victory that Diesel pulled off at Madison Square Garden a little bit, much like Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey rubbed that poor jobber's nose in his taint. And Backlund at this point says that sooner or later, Mr. Diesel is going to get the chicken wing applied to him in the WWF. And before Backlund retires, Backlund is going to procure the chicken wing on Vince McMahon too. And that's when he starts marching out. Backlund stops to jaw with the crowd a little bit on his way out. And Vince says, we'll be back with more Monday Night Raw after this. We do come back to Vince and Lawler with the Chud behind them still. Next week, Double J Jeff Jarrett is going to square off against the British Bulldog. And don't miss the encore presentation of Survivor Series tomorrow night. So long until next week, and we fade to black. That's it for this episode. Highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you get us started there?
My highlight is just, even though I didn't love how it happened, but just the new era with Diesel as champion. I think it's just a nice fresh start here. And actually, my low light is how it happened. I think it's just kind of weird, but I like the fact that we have a new champion that we're going to have for a pretty good run, a lengthy run here. I think it's something to look forward to. I know it's known as like the worst time ever in the WWF, but you know, it's something I don't really remember that well, and I do look forward to watching all of it again.
My highlights, I have two of them tonight. They are the first and final matches, both jobber matches, and both Vince and the King did not pay much attention to. But the Owen match had good in-ring action, and as always, Owen is a treat to watch. And then the final match was probably some of the best in-ring work of the night. So that's why I had to put it as a highlight, even though Vince didn't care about it at all. Low light, you know, I know this is the Fallout show and it's right after a big pay-per-view event. So the big names are taking it easy and letting their injuries heal up here. But come on, the anchor match of the night is IRS versus Adam Bomb. A mid-carder versus a low mid-carder.
Which one's the low mid-carder?
That the King correctly pointed out is falling his way down the ladder here. Adam Bomb is the low mid-carder. We need something a little better than that.
Well, I am going to drastically diverge from both of you here. I'm going to do my low light first. My low light was the Lex Luger Burt Santano match. Horrible.
Makes sense.
Horrible. It was just horrible. Joe, I wish I could get on board with you about the whole championship thing. And I feel as though I spoke my piece on it earlier, but it is what it is. I can't really justify putting that up there as a highlight or a low light just because it's the reality that we live in here. Speaking of the reality that we live in, my highlights, there's going to be two of them. They're tied equally. First, no midget shit. With the exception of that, you know, hawking the encore presentation, very, very minimal. I mean, Vince poked Lawler about it a couple times, but they didn't dwell on it. And we didn't see Donk. We didn't have any of that shit going on. It was great. It was fucking great to have an episode without any of that happening. The other highlight is just the especially perverse behavior of Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey tonight. I mean, he was really on his game as far as being fucking disgusting, and I loved it. So that's going to be that. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news on and around November 28th, 1994 for us?
I do have a few items. Number one is the final results from the readers' poll on Survivor Series. Thumbs up, 39%. Thumbs down, 48.5%, and the rest were in the middle. So people didn't like it. Let's just say that. Meltzer calls Diesel's win as the latest attempt to recreate Hulk Hogan. So it sounds like he wasn't a big fan of the decision. WWF Mania is still a show that is on Saturday mornings during this time, and Meltzer said that people could probably have read between the lines because they announced on WWF Mania that Diesel was getting a title shot versus Bob Backlund due to Bret Hart's injury. So they sort of tried to last minute build up to it, but I mean, at that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
The plan is for when Shawn Michaels' hand heals up, the plan is to have Michaels be the headliner to oppose Diesel at house shows once that heals. And that is all that I had here from The Observer from November 28th, 1994.
All right. Thank you for that. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. Also, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw popping up in your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. Hit us with a 5-star review or 4 3/4 if you're Dave Meltzer, wherever you download your podcasts. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to get into the Raw that aired on December 5th, 1994, with matches featuring the Master of the Martial Arts Quang and the Roadie, among others. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.